Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Shanks from the Superstations, the Bill Shanks Show, which airs every Monday through Friday from 3 until 7 o'clock on thesuperstations.com, also on radio stations in Macon, 93.1, also on Warner Robins, 105.9, Pinehurst, which is south central Georgia from Perry down to Cordele, on 98.3, Rochelle, which includes Fitzgerald, Ocilla, near Tifton, also on 93.1. We're on in Brunswick on 103.7 and in Savannah on 104.3. And we'll be back on in Blackshear and Waycross very, very soon. Also, of course, all over the country on thesuperstations.com. I want to talk a little bit about the Braves. I'm just feeling like I need to talk a little bit about the Braves and the excitement I have over what has been done this all season with this pitching staff. I think Alex Anthopoulos, who of course has a new deal running through 2031, has put the Braves in really good shape when it comes to pitching. And he had a comment on the interview that I did with him on January the 2nd that I think is very important to remember as far as looking at the big picture with this organizational depth that they have right now. And remember, on Monday, January the 15th, they're going to have another international signing period. Now, they're going to sign one kid for a heck of a lot of money, perhaps the number one overall prospect in Jose Perdomo. I don't know how many pitchers they'll get, but of course they've got the draft coming up in July, which will add more pitchers, and I'm sure to the farm system. But they have a better farm system, I think, than people think. And this comment from Alex really rings true with that as far as what he thinks about the farm system right now. He said on our show, organizationally, we are set up very well in the short and long term. Look, we're going to have another draft that comes in. When we have an international period that comes in as well. We have another wave of young kids that aren't famous right now, but we think a year from now, organizational depth, especially on the mound, is going to be exceptionally strong. So I think that's important for the short term and the long term because of a couple of things. Number one, because of the deal with Chris Sale, it's not out of the question for Alex Anthopoulos to do something else before spring training. There are still a ton of pitchers out there available. Now, Jim Bowden of The Athletic wrote over the weekend that he believes the backstop, if you will, or backlog of the moves that are usually made by mid-January is because of some of the television deals that are still having to be worked out, where a lot of teams don't know what their revenue is going to be. And maybe that's the case, but here we are a month from spring training, and there's no telling how many free agents are still on the market and a lot of pitchers who could really help a lot of teams, including the Braves. Now, the Braves are set up pretty well after this Chris Sale trade. There's no question about that. With Max Fried, who, by the way, was at a Hawks game on Saturday. You've got, of course, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, Chris Sale, Bryce Elder, the possibility of Reynaldo Lopez being stretched out to be a starter, and they'll battle it out for the fifth starter spot, I guess, in spring training. And then, of course, the bullpen, which is in great shape with Raciel Iglesias, A.J. Minter, Tyler Matzik coming back. Hopefully Dylan Lee will be back. You've got, of course, Aaron Bummer, who is new from the White Sox in a trade. Pierce Johnson, Joe Jimenez back, re-signed by Alex Anthopoulos over the offseason. I mean, that bullpen looks really good. And then you have guys that could be at AAA like Ray Kerr, Jackson Stevens, Daysbel Hernandez, people with options that could be very, very important. Of course, there are additional starting pitchers, too, that are going to be in AAA. Alan Winans, you've got Darius Vines, Dylan Dodd, Huascar Inoa. We've got to see where he is in spring training, of course. A.J. Smith-Shawver, Hurston Waldrop, and, of course, we'll have to see what Ian Anderson's situation is when he gets to spring training and how many months it'll be before he could be a possibility for the Braves as well. So, look, we know that the Braves always use a lot of pitchers. That's the way baseball is. What was it, 1980, I believe I looked up. The 1980 Braves had like 11 pitchers on their entire roster the entire year. They were exceptionally healthy and pretty tough back 43, 44 years ago. And that's just not the way baseball is now. You got to count on between 10 and 13 starting pitchers perhaps, and then also, of course, up to 30 pitchers overall that you have to count on. So I think the Braves have done a very good job of stockpiling these pitchers, and especially, even though they thinned out their system a little bit with the trade for Aaron Bummer, which got rid of course, Mike Soroka and Jared Schuster, they still have a good number of pitchers. And as Alex said there are names that a lot of people don't know much about that I think we're going to learn more about in 2024, and they'll increase the value of this farm system a little bit. There's no question that if the main two are A.J. Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop, and I think not trading either one of those guys this offseason has allowed that farm system to kind of regain its strength. Hopefully, if the Braves need help in the regular season, if one of those 5 starting pitchers gets hurt or has to miss a start, they'll be able to call on Alan Winans or Dylan Dodd or Darius Vines to come up and be part of that rotation and leave Hurston Waldrop and A.J. Smith-Shawver alone. Now, as Alex reminded me when he was on the show back on January the 2nd, look, if Hurston Waldrop or A.J. Smith-Shawver come into spring training and show that they're better than the others, they're going to get a spot on this pitching staff. I mean, that's just how Alex Anthopoulos is. He has to balance the possibility of allowing those guys to go back to minor leagues, which they really need from an innings perspective, and whether or not they're the best pitchers to put on the team. And look, he wants to win. And if he thinks Hurston Waldrop or A.J. Smith-Shawver are in position to possibly help the Braves at the major league level, he's going to do that. Now, I think that the better course of action is to prefer to have them go to the minor leagues and leave them down there to develop more and hopefully increase their value to where either the Braves can use them in Atlanta this year if needed or use them in a trade. Now, the one thing we have to keep in mind about the Braves situation is after 2024, Max Fried and Charlie Morton come off the books. And Charlie, of course, is 84 years old. We don't know if he's going to continue on at his age. Max Fried, of course, is going to be perhaps the most sought-after free agent pitcher in next year's free agent crop. And, of course, we know the Dodgers are going to be tied to Max Fried since he grew up a Dodgers fan. So there's a chance that they will need to replace, if these two stay healthy, between 50 and 60 starts from 2024 into 2025. If Hurston Waldrop and A.J. Smith-Shawver show that they are fully ready to join a rotation in 2025, those are two pitchers who will be cheap and young who you could put in the rotation and fill those spots, along with Spencer Strider, Chris Sale, and, of course, Bryce Elder if he has a good year. But we need to keep in mind this. The Braves do have some pitchers who are going to be developing, and as Alex said, are not necessarily household names or famous right now, could develop and be more in the picture looking into the latter part of 2024 and into 2025. Of course, I think one name to keep in mind here is Spencer Schwellenbach. Now, Spencer was a high draft pick a couple of years ago, immediately had Tommy John surgery, and then came back this past year, and you know, he pitched in 16 games, 65 innings pitched, and I don't think they're going to limit him in 2024 as long as he's healthy. He did miss a month with a strain after he pitched in the Futures game, but I think if Spencer Schwellenbach starts at Double-A and is healthy, he could take off. His stuff is very, very good, and the Braves like him a great deal. So I think that is one name to keep in mind. You have then, obviously, you got a couple of guys who were drafted this past year. Cade Kuehler, who will probably start in either Augusta or Rome. Drew Hackenberg, who, same thing. They're a little bit older. They're both 21 right now. They'll turn 22 during the year. You've got Giancarlo Lara, I believe is how to pronounce it, and he will just turn 21. As a matter of fact, on January the 15th. But he's someone to keep in mind. Baseball America voted him as the prospect most likely to break out for the Braves. MLB.com didn't even have him in the top 30 prospect list, but he's someone to watch. And you just have others. Lucas Braun, Luis de Avila, a lefty who did well last year at at Mississippi, and got a little bit of time at Gwinnett. Seth Keller, is he going to be healthy this year? Tyler Owens, a kid who I think they really like Tyler Owens. He's got some good stuff, and he could be a starter full-time in 2024. Adam Mayer, we'll see where he is coming back from Tommy John surgery, and if he goes to Augusta, perhaps if he's healthy and ready to go. And, of course, at some point, I think J.R. Ritchie will be ready to return late in the year after he had Tommy John last May. Owen Murphy, a former first-round draft pick, could be in Rome this year full-time after making a majority of his starts, 18 with Augusta last year. So these are names that if they continue to have good development in spring training and then in the minor leagues in 2024, they're going to add to the value not only of their own individual value, but also for the teams as well. But I just think the Braves pitching staff is in great shape. I'm not talking about the batters right now because I don't think there's a big problem with the offense. Last year it was a record-setting offense that was outstanding. Now we get Jared Kelenic to join the crew, and we hope, of course, that the others will do even 85 to 90% of what they did last year. If that happens, they're going to have a very good offensive year once again, and we know there's potential for some to even get better. But the pitching staff is so important. And look, that's why I love the Chris Sale trade. Not only was he cheap, I mean, my gosh, the financial details of that trade are ridiculous, really. But this guy's healthy. And this guy's healthy during the offseason for the first time in a long time. He's already down at Braves camp throwing long toss sessions and bullpens. And if he stays healthy, when Chris Sale is healthy, he's a great pitcher. You got to keep him healthy. There's no question about that. And that's something that everybody's going to want for him to do this year is to simply stay healthy. But if he can, and he's the fourth starter behind Max Fried, who, yes, has to stay healthy himself, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, and then Chris Sale, that's ridiculous. Now, my hope is for Bryce Elder to come to camp mad as hell and wants to simply go out there and win that job, to show he can be a full-time starting pitcher and can make 30 starts and go more deeper into games and to be fresher when the postseason and the stretch run rolls around, because we have no idea how this season is going to play out. It may be a race to the very finish like it was with the Mets a couple of years ago. Phillies are going to be tough. We know that. The Marlins are going to be tough as well. So it could be something, but of course Bryce Elder is needed to start 30 games again, maybe as a fifth starter, but we need those innings pitched to be higher. We need him to go deeper into the games. I think the Braves are going to want that to happen. And hopefully, if Bryce Elder can come to camp and be ready for that challenge, really, that will allow Reynaldo Lopez to go to the bullpen. And if you have a bullpen with Raisel Iglesias, Reynaldo Lopez, Joe Jimenez, Aaron Bummer, Pierce Johnson, A.J. Minter, Tyler Matzik, and Dylan Lee, or some form or fashion of that combination of pitchers, that could be the best bullpen in baseball, which would be unbelievable. But I also am extremely excited about the mid-level pitchers that the Braves can call on. Again, let's hope they can leave A.J. Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop in AAA. Let's hope they can continue to develop those guys. And then look, if they get to the point where it's stupid to keep them in AA or AAA, okay, well then make the decision right there to bring them on up. But leave them there as long as you can. But when you need a spot start, bring up a Darius Vines, bring up an Alan Winans, bring up a Dylan Don if you need to. And we, of course, have to see where Huascar Inoa is this season, because he's coming back from Tommy John, and he may be stronger than ever. Who knows? So there's just a lot of positive when it comes to the Braves and their pitching. I'm extremely excited about it. I can't wait for spring training to go see some of these pitchers, to see how they look, and to see some of these young kids that are going to come to camp and get a look by the Major League team. Because, look, this is a very good farm system. I know it's not rated very high, but remember, they don't need a lot of position player prospects right now. They've got the catcher locked up, first baseman locked up, second baseman locked up, shortstop locked up, third baseman locked up. You've got their right fielder and center fielder locked up. You've got left field, who's now a young player who's got 5 years of control. There's not a current drastic need in the next 2 to 3 years for any position on the team. Now, you could say, well, DH, of course, and there's no question that after this year, there's a team option for 2025 on Marcell Ozuna, and maybe that's picked up, maybe it's not. But for the most part, the need for position players is very low. They can allow then the other Braves position prospects, Dave McCabe, the Sabalos kid, Perdomo, who will be into the farm system obviously this year, the number one international prospect who will be signed on Monday. They can allow those players to develop, and if they're needed, if there's an opening where they're going to be needed, okay, bring them in. If not, let them continue to get better, to develop and get their value up to where hopefully they can be used in a trade for an even better player. And who knows, maybe the depth that's been accumulated so far and perhaps the ability to make another deal will convince Alex Anthopoulos that he could swing a deal even before spring training. Could you imagine if they acquired Dylan Cease before the beginning of the year? And look, they're not going to give up Waldrop and Smith-Shawver. Would Alex Anthopoulos give up one of those two with Bryce Elder and some other mid-level prospects to the White Sox for Dylan Cease? I don't know, but it's a good question. Or could there be another player that could be out there that could be available that would make sense financially and allow the Braves to not decimate their farm system? So I think we're primed for a really interesting season here. I love the Chris Sale trade. I can't wait to see Chris Sale in the Braves uniform. That's exciting. And I love this rotation. If it's healthy, Fried, Strider, Morton, Sale, and Elder or Lopez. I'm kind of hoping Elder wins that job just so Lopez can be in that bullpen, because can you imagine the bullpen they would have with Iglesias and Lopez and Johnson and Jimenez and Minter and Bummer and Matzik and Dylan Lee? Unbelievable, the potential with that. And of course, you've got people like Ray Kerr that could be in AAA, Jackson Stevens, Daysbel Hernandez, who, if and when they're needed, they'll be called up. So I think the Braves are in great shape. I hope they'll continue to draft pitchers moving forward. In the draft in July, I think that's the key to building up a farm system. I love the names that we have on this farm system right now as far as the pitchers are concerned. We need to see more of them. Like, what is Lucas Braun? He only pitched in 4 games last year, and he probably start in Rome. A little bit older pitcher, but a very interesting prospect. I want to see more of Tyler Owens. I want to see how the young kid, the big monster Garrett Ballman, does, who's only 19 years old and will be 19 for the majority of the season. I want to see how Kuehler and Hackenberg do, the 2 high draft picks from last year, and see if Murphy can take that next step in high A and maybe get to double A, because then he'll be very, very close. So, I kind of fight back against the notion the Braves don't have a great farm system. I know it's not great. It's not like it was when Acuna was in there. They don't have high-end prospects like Acuna or Ozzie or Michael Harris or someone like that. But they do have contributors. And contributors includes people who could be used in trades to improve the Major League ball club. We got to remember, though, you've got all these position players lined up for at least the next 3 years, which they do, with the exception of the DH. You've got a tremendous advantage to allow that farm system to simmer a little bit. And hopefully it will mean the Braves are in great shape to where when they need to go, or if they need to go get a starting pitcher before the trade deadline or another relief pitcher, they'll have plenty of trade fodder to be able to use in those kind of deals. And I think they are building that up with what they have in the farm system right now. So it's mid-January. We're getting closer, about a month away from spring training. Hopefully this week we'll learn exactly what day the Braves pitchers and catchers will report to Northport. We're getting closer, though, and I personally can't wait to see how some of these pitchers develop for the 2024 season. Don't forget to listen to our talk show every Monday through Friday from 3 until 7, thesuperstations.com, and follow me on Twitter @BillShanks. Have a great week.